Imagine getting a thank you at a funeral, and it opens an unknown chapter of your life that changes how you see everything. My name is Christopher, and this is my story. I was at a funeral, one that should not have taken place. He walked up to me and hugged me. Not the polite kind. Not the brief, awkward kind people give when they don't know what to say. He held on. Longer than anyone else had. I could smell rain on his coat. Damp, cold air. His hands were shaking. Then he leaned in and whispered, quietly, like the words were fragile. "Thank you. For everything." I nodded. Because that's what you do at funerals. You nod. You accept words you don't understand. You don't ask questions. But when he pulled away, I looked at his face. And I knew. I had never seen him before in my life. The funeral was already ending. Chairs scraping softly against stone. People murmuring apologies and condolences as they drifted away in small groups. I stayed where I was, next to the grave, staring at the soil like it might rearrange itself into something that made sense. My sister was the one in the ground. And she would have hated the weather. She always said rain made everything feel like a performance. "You don't cry because you're sad," she used to tell me. "You cry because the moment tells you to." Anna didn't like being told how to feel. I was still standing there when the stranger passed me again. This time he stopped. "I didn't expect to see you," he said. His voice was calm now. Steady. Almost relieved. "I'm sorry," I said. "Do I know you?" He smiled. Not surprised. Not offended. "No," he said. "You don't." Then he looked down at the grave. "But she talked about you." That landed heavier than it should have. A lot of people talked about me when Anna was alive. I was her older brother. The responsible one. The one who made phone calls and handled problems and showed up when things broke. But the way he said it, like he'd known her closely, like he was allowed to say her name without explaining himself, it unsettled me. "I should go," he said. "I just wanted to make sure you were here." "For what?" I asked. He hesitated. "Then, so I could thank you properly." He reached into his coat and pulled something out. A folded piece of paper. Not an envelope. Just a single sheet, creased and worn, like it had been opened and closed too many times. "She wanted you to have this," he said. I didn't take it. My sister had died suddenly. No warning. No final conversations. Just a phone call at 2:14 a.m. and a quiet voice asking if I was sitting down. If Anna had wanted me to have something, I would have known. "I think you're mistaken," I said. He shook his head. "She said you'd say that." That was the moment I felt it. Not fear. Not anger. But something colder. Recognition. "How did you know her?" I asked. He looked at me carefully, like he was deciding how much truth I could carry. "She saved my life," he said. Then, before I could respond, he placed the paper in my hand and stepped back. "I'm sorry for your loss," he added. "Truly." And then he was gone. I stood there with that piece of paper pressed between my fingers, watching his back disappear into the thinning crowd. Saved my life. Anna was kind, but she wasn't heroic. She avoided confrontation. She hated responsibility that wasn't hers. She once let a stranger yell at her in a grocery store because, in her words, "I didn't have the energy to be brave that day." I folded the paper without opening it. Some things feel dangerous even before you understand why. That night, my apartment felt too quiet. I poured a drink I didn't want and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the paper like it might start speaking on its own. It was handwritten. Anna's handwriting. Neat. Slightly slanted. Always careful, like she was afraid her thoughts might spill if she rushed. I unfolded it. There were only 3 lines. No greeting. No goodbye. Just this. "If anything happens to me, please don't tell my brother what he did. Let him believe he was just being himself." I read it twice. Then again. What he did. My chest tightened. I hadn't done anything. I would remember if I had saved someone's life. I would remember if my sister had asked me to protect a secret like this. I folded the paper slowly, my hands steadier than I felt. Outside, rain tapped against the windows. Soft. Persistent. Like someone waiting to be let in. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about the note. About the way the stranger had said her name. About the line that wouldn't leave me alone. Let him believe he was just being himself. I tried to remember the last year of Anna's life in detail. Not the big things. The small ones. The ordinary moments people forget because they don't feel important enough to hold on to. Anna worked at a community legal aid office. Not as a lawyer. As an intake coordinator. She was the first face people saw when they walked in carrying problems too heavy for them to solve alone. She listened. That was her gift. She listened when others rushed. She believed people even when the system didn't. 2 weeks before she died, she called me late at night. Not distressed. Not urgent. Just quiet. "Do you remember that winter a few years ago?" she asked. "Which one?" I said. "The bad one," she replied. "When everything felt stuck." I laughed. "That doesn't narrow it down." She didn't laugh back. "You helped someone then?" she said. "You probably don't remember." I told her she was being vague again. She always was. "Promise me something," she said. I remember rolling my eyes. "You're asking like you're about to move to another country." "Just promise," she said. So I did. I promised. At the time it felt like nothing. Now, sitting alone in my kitchen, it felt like a loose thread pulling at everything. The next morning I called her office. It took a few tries before someone answered. People were still adjusting to her absence. Her desk was probably still exactly how she left it. I asked if anyone knew a man who'd attended the funeral. Middle-aged. Quiet. Wore a dark coat. There was a pause on the line. Then the woman said carefully, "Are you talking about Michael?" The name didn't mean anything to me. "He used to come in sometimes," she continued. "Not often. Only when things got really bad." "Bad how?" I asked. She hesitated. "You might want to come down here." The office smelled the same as I remembered. Old paper. Cheap coffee. Stress pretending to be order. The woman, Claire, sat across from me and slid a thin folder across the desk. "This isn't official," she said. "Anna kept it separate." Inside were notes. Dates. Short sentences written in Anna's careful handwriting. Client expresses guilt disproportionate to actions. Strong fixation on past decision. Mentions a man who intervened once. Doesn't know his name. I looked up. Intervened how? Claire swallowed. "He was planning to jump," she said. The room felt suddenly too small. "Michael?" I asked. She nodded. "He lost his job. His marriage. His housing. Everything unraveled at once. He stood on a bridge for almost an hour." I shook my head. "That wasn't me." Claire looked at me gently. "It was." I felt something cold slide down my spine. "That winter you mentioned," she said. "There was a storm. Traffic was stopped. A lot of people were late to things." I remembered the storm. I remembered being stuck on my way to work. I remembered getting out of my car, frustrated, cold, pacing. I remembered seeing a man standing too close to the edge of the bridge. And I remembered saying something. Not profound. Not heroic. Just annoyed honesty. "You're holding up traffic," I'd said. "If you're going to stand there, at least step back." Michael had looked at me like I'd slapped him awake. I'd stood there for a few minutes. Complained about my day. About my sister borrowing money she never repaid. About how life didn't feel like it was going anywhere. Then I left. I didn't call anyone. Didn't wait. Didn't check back. I'd forgotten it entirely. "You didn't save him by stopping him," Claire said softly. "You saved him by treating him like a person who still belonged in the world." I closed the folder. My hands were shaking. And I knew. She'd known for years. And she never told me. Michael asked to meet me a few days later. A cafe. Quiet. Neutral ground. He looked different out of his coat. Older than I'd first thought. Tired in a way that doesn't fade with rest. "I didn't mean to intrude," he said. "Your sister made me promise I wouldn't unless you asked." "She planned this," I said. He nodded. "She planned everything." He told me how Anna had found him again years after the bridge. How she'd recognized his name on an intake form. How she'd gone pale and then smiled like she'd found something she'd been missing. "She said she needed to protect you," he said. "From knowing how much your smallest moments mattered." "Why?" I asked. "Because she was afraid you'd stop being yourself." That hurt more than it should have. Michael told me the truth then. The part Anna never put in writing. She had been sick for longer than anyone knew. Not terminal at first. Just enough to make her cautious. Reflective. She said some people live their lives trying to be important, he said. And some people are important without trying. You were the second kind. Anna didn't want gratitude to change me. Didn't want me measuring my worth by outcomes I couldn't control. So she chose silence. She chose to let me remain ordinary. "She asked me to thank you," Michael said. "Only after she was gone." I thought of the note. Let him believe he was just being himself. Anna had known. That was the twist I hadn't been prepared for. She hadn't needed saving. She'd been saving me. It's been 6 months. I still think about that bridge. About how close I was to never knowing. I didn't become a better person overnight. I didn't change careers. I didn't start volunteering or making speeches. That's not the point. What changed was smaller, quieter. I stopped rushing past people when they were inconvenient. I started staying a few minutes longer, listening a little harder, speaking even when my words felt clumsy and unnecessary. Michael sends me a message once a month. Nothing heavy. Just updates. Still alive. Still here. And sometimes that feels like enough. At Anna's grave, I don't apologize anymore. I thank her for trusting me to be ordinary, for knowing that was enough. And for me, this was everything. This is Story Vault. Every story has a key, and here we find it. Christopher, in his story, displays the power of little things, the impact of small moments, and the intensity of a jiffy. Thank you for unlocking the vault with us. See you in the next story.